From The National, this is Trending Middle East. I'm Yasmin Al-Taji. It's Friday, May 30th. Here are today's headlines. Israel has approved 22 new settlements in the occupied West Bank. Campaigners are calling it the largest development of its kind in decades. The decision legalizes 9 outposts, typically home to the most violent and ideological edges of the country's settler movement. It also establishes settlements in remote areas of the northern West Bank, where there's little to no permanent Israeli military presence. The National's Thomas Helm reports.
They're throughout the West Bank, but the things that shocked people the most was the settlements that have been announced in the north. Some of these are on the sites of previous settlements.
Some of the new communities are on areas that were evacuated in 2005 when Israel evicted several communities in the north of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. Settlers have repeatedly tried to re-enter the area, and a law banning Israeli citizens from the region was revoked last year. New settlements along the border with Jordan will also be set. Israel's defense ministry said those will improve its security.
Campaigners I spoke to said there were 3 main things to consider with these settlements. The first one is that it makes the continuity of Palestinian territory far less viable. Now, that means that the prospect of getting a future Palestinian state would be a lot harder because as part of the negotiations, you'd have to deal with Israeli communities throughout land that should be forming a continuous Palestinian state. They also highlighted that many of these settlements are established next to Palestinian towns and villages, and this typically makes it very hard for Palestinians to develop economically. We've seen on multiple occasions, for example, that settler outposts make it impossible for Palestinians to pick olives, to herd sheep, to develop the land, because if they go out into their property, sometimes settlers can attack, or indeed the Israeli military set up roadblocks. And the third thing that they highlighted was the fact that these Israeli communities and settlements often target Palestinians, particularly those in smaller, more vulnerable communities, which essentially advances what these activists were calling ethnic cleansing in the West Bank.
Authorities in Saudi Arabia are making arrests for unauthorized pilgrimage this Hajj season. State media reported Thursday that authorities had arrested 26 people for taking more than 80 pilgrims to Mecca to perform the Hajj without a permit. The kingdom has announced tough penalties for illegal pilgrims this year as Riyadh attempts to ensure a safe and orderly Hajj. Worshippers began arriving in Saudi Arabia early this month for the pilgrimage, one of the largest mass gatherings in the world. Penalties had already been issued, including imprisonment, fines of up to 100,000 Saudi riyals or $26,600, deportation for the non-citizens, and a 10-year ban on re-entry to the kingdom. Each year, millions of Muslims from around the world gather in Mecca to perform Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam and among the most significant spiritual journeys in the religion. The pilgrimage spans several days and includes a sequence of highly structured religious rites. Saudi Arabia has been intensifying efforts to ensure an orderly and safe Hajj. Crashes, tent fires, and other accidents have caused hundreds of deaths over the past 30 years during the pilgrimage. The Saudi government has responded by building new infrastructure. Syria has signed a memorandum of understanding worth billions of dollars in energy. The MOU is with international companies led by the Qatari UCC Holding. The agreement involves building 4 gas power plants with a total capacity of 4,000 megawatts and a 1,000-megawatt solar power plant in southern Syria. Construction is expected to begin after final agreements, and it's set to finish within 3 years for the gas plants and less than 2 years for the solar plant. The National's Maucourant Atallah reports.
The deal is aimed at doubling the country's power supply, Syria is going through a very severe power crisis.
Syria's electricity sector has deteriorated significantly after 14 years of civil war. It's suffering from severe damage to its grid and power stations, aging infrastructure, and persistent fuel shortages. In most areas, the Syrian state is able to supply only 2 to 3 hours of electricity per day. It's a crisis that interim President Ahmed al-Shara has pledged to address.
Most of the day, Syrians are plunged in the darkness, and it's also a massive impediment for economic growth in general. The deal was praised by Syria's energy minister as a historic moment, and he said that it will help rebuilding this crumbling infrastructure of this very important sector. The agreement is led by a Qatari company, UCC, and it also involves one US company and 2 Turkish companies. It is supposed to create 50,000 direct jobs and hundreds indirect jobs in a country where unemployment is widespread and where the UN estimates that 90% of the population lives under the poverty line.
The lifting of sweeping sanctions on Syria has rekindled interest among global investors, with several major companies already establishing a foothold in the war-ravaged economy. That's all for this morning's headlines. You can get these stories and follow live updates at our site. Yasmin Al-Taji, The National.